Now, as for my very, very special next guest, words cannot express or contain the level of excitement, gratitude, sheer disbelief, honestly, because I mean it to my very core when I say that she is one of the greatest, most gifted teachers of astrology that I have ever encountered. The GOAT, Sea Goat, Bryce over. There's my dad joke for the day.
I'll take it.
Her capacity to simultaneously counsel, inform, nurture, activate, hold space, all while teaching the particularly complex topic of astrology, and thoroughly, I might add, is astounding. I can recall her brilliant show, Ghost of a Podcast, where she was speaking on the ever so elusive Neptune. Never have I ever felt so seen and understood, because as the running joke goes, it is not to be understood, it is the antithesis of that, right? And yet, and still, as humans, we seek to understand these planets and their properties to understand our own. And trust and believe you could not have a more exceptional teacher than my next guest. In her own words, my goal is to help people help themselves by cultivating self-understanding, strategies for living well, and emotional intelligence. Please join AstroPop TV in giving the warmest celestial welcome to humanistic astrologer, psychic medium, tarot reader, and animal communicator, Jessica Lanyadoo.
That was so nice. Like such a kind, lovely. Thank you. That's very kind.
That was from my soul.
I felt it. It. I was trying to not hide. I was trying to take it in, but it's hard. But thank you. I really appreciate it.
No problem. I was excited and then mortified because I was like, for real?
Oh, no.
Yeah, because I just think that you're the best. Like you contain, you know your shit, but you can hold space and you're so therapeutic. And I just listen to your podcast. Like, I'm not religious. I'm a very spiritual person, but I know I speak for a lot of people when I say, when I listen to it, I just feel so enriched. And I'm going like this because I just lay and I just feel like, I don't know. I just feel like I'm being immersed in some type of healing. So I really want to, I want to thank you for the work you do because it really is a service, you know.
That's how I hold it.
And it's evident.
I will say it is, so much of my work is the result, and this is so Neptunian of me, just for the record, of working literally in a basement apartment for, I don't know, 15 years. 10 years I was in a basement apartment, literally, just doing readings. But I did a very classic 12th house thing where I kind of isolated myself and I focused all of my 20s. Yeah, I hermited up. All of my 20s were practicing astrology, using astrology, practicing astrology, using astrology. And it was before social media. Right. So it was before there was any noise. There were books. Right. There was an astrology group I could go to, but it wasn't the level of data and noise. And some of that noise is delicious and it's music, and some of that noise is just noise. But I didn't have any of that at that time. So it was that 12th house thing was different than what one could do today, because today you just Google and you get data, right? That didn't exist then. So
right. So, exactly.
Yeah.
So what drew you to, astrology? I've read a few things about you. I know you were into sociology as well. I don't know which one came first, but just curious about that and curious as to how they informed each other, because I'm sure that they did.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear about that.
I was I am 50 years old now, and when I was little, which was in the 1970s, early 80s, I always talked about astrology. I remember being on my Hot Wheels and being like, I'm a Capricorn. I'm going to keep all my wisdom teeth, which, by the way, knock on wood, I still have done. I just I don't know how I knew that Capricorn was associated with teeth and with wisdom, but I did.
Wow.
And so I always had an interest in astrology. And then, as I started to grow up, people were like philosophy, sociology, therapy, because astrology wasn't taken seriously. And, but I always was kind of interested in astrology. But again, context to the time that I grew up in, the only access to astrology that people had was these little scrolls at the supermarket for your zodiac sign. So it was a while ago. So that was my only access. And for my 12th birthday, I got this book by Sydney Omar, who was like the astrologer to the supermarkets of
Mm.
Canada and America. And I grew up in Canada. And so I got this book about Capricorn. I read it cover to cover a million times. And I never thought, like, when I thought, what do I want to be when I grew up? I thought, I would be some sort of like social worker or therapist. I always
Right.
thought that because,
Right.
again, I didn't think astrologer was a thing
Mhm.
until um, I went to. Okay, so I'm from Quebec, and in Quebec we have a different school system. High school goes till grade 11, and then there's a 2-year government-funded college program called CEGEP. And
Ooh,
so, yeah, it's really cool. It's like
that's
it
so
was like
cool.
$60 a semester at the time, and it is just like whatever. It was very cool. But I
Yeah.
went to the alternative college, and at the alternative college, the there was an introduction to astrology taught by a Jungian psychologist. So he
What?
taught Jungian psychology in the regular school, and he taught introduction to astrology from a Jungian perspective
Oh
at
my
the alternative
god.
school. And he only did it the 2 semesters that I was there. I was like,
Whoa.
yeah, very meant to be. And so I took the introduction class where I got to study at a college level substantive astrology from like a very Capricorn Scorpio kind of teacher. Mike Boyle was his name.
Mm.
And I, at that same time, realized I was queer. I was in my teens at the time, my late teens. And I was like, okay, so I'm going to move to San Francisco because at that time, San Francisco was like a hippie place. It was like this alternative
Yeah.
place. It was where
Mhm.
you could learn with other astrologers. And so I, um, I made that decision and then took the advanced class, the intermediate class of
Mhm.
astrology,
Mhm.
the second semester. And at that point, I was just like, this is what I'm going to do with my life. And I just, um, I
Wow.
mean, I didn't think of it as like, this is going to be my job because
Right.
I'm such a 12th house person. I have sun, moon, and Mars all in the 12th. I don't
Woo.
really, I didn't think in that way. Um, but I was really just like, this is what I'm going to dedicate my life to. And so I didn't graduate because I refused to take phys ed, and I was like an
Oh
asshole, and I was
god.
like, "You can't make me do shit I don't wanna do." I got great grades, I just didn't graduate, and I just packed my, like, backpack full of astrology books and men's slacks because I was a baby dyke and I, like, had a little shaved head and tried to be like a butch because I thought that's what I had to do to be gay, and I just flew one-way ticket to San Francisco and stayed there for
Wow.
30 years, stayed there until a few months ago. So, yeah, I just was like,
Wow.
"I'm gonna fucking do this," and I got really lucky because I was able to be connected with this community of older astrologers who are boomers, who were like, came up in the hippie generation and studied astrology from the 70s,
That's
and
so
at that point,
cool.
it was the mid-90s. So I got really, like,
Wow.
lucky. Yeah, yeah, I got really
You
lucky and
magnetized that though. It sounds like it's just fate, pure
absolutely. It
fate.
was it was meant to be. I mean, now I
Ooh.
can look back and be like, this was meant to be. And it was really in so I moved to San Francisco in 1994 and I started meeting with clients like 94, 95. And
Mhm.
I again, it was a very different world than we have now. And so I one thing is rents were different, right? So cost of living was less in the,
Definitely.
like, early mid 1990s.
Yeah.
And so it allowed me more flexibility, and I think that that's an important, like, cultural thing for me to say. And also, I would do this thing where I would spend 3 hours studying and taking notes. And again, pre-internet
Wow.
studying meant books. Like, it was the only way to study was books. So I would
Mhm.
study and take notes and reference multiple books, and I would write notes on every single aspect in the birth chart.
Wow.
And I only work with the major aspects, and
Mhm.
I would just fucking go deep, and then I would give readings, and,
Mm.
usually I would do it for trade in the first years of my work. And
Mhm.
eventually what I ended up doing was getting to a point where I was like, "Okay, I have a sense of, like, real competency with this. I don't need to do 3 hours." I went from, like, 3 hours to 2 hours and 2 hours to 1 hour, and
Mm.
now I need a couple minutes. That's all I
Mm.
need. Um, and
Clearly.
yeah, yeah, I'm quick. I am quick. I am quick. And so but for me, it was really about the repetition of fundamentals. And
Mhm.
I this is a huge part of what I try to model and teach for people is like, you can use a million fucking methods. You can use all these techniques. And I know boys love their techniques. People of all genders do, but boys love their techniques. You know what I'm
Totally.
saying? From my perspective, like, the fundamentals give you everything you need. Part of why my work is very much focused on like counseling is because I'm using the tool to help people. And different
Exactly.
astrologers have different motives for using the tool, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Revealing the truth, having an interesting conversation, making accurate predictions. These are all valid ways to use astrology. For me, in my 20s, at one point, I had like this like crisis of confidence where I was really like, do I need to be a therapist? Like, I want to counsel people. I want to help people. Do I need to be a therapist? And
Right.
I investigated it and I was like, no, I need to just be a better counselor and I need to
Mm.
be more educated about counseling. And, you know, within all of this, I did direct service work. I worked with toddlers. I worked with folks living with
Wow.
disabilities. I worked with seniors. So I did direct care work.
Amazing.
A bunch, yeah, and that really informed my work a lot. I also, worked, I worked maybe I won't share that actually. No, I'm gonna pull that back. I'm gonna pull that back, but I'll just
Okay,
say I
that's
worked
fine.
yeah, I worked in a lot of places that taught me about how humans work, how humans
Mm.
function,
Mm.
and within all of that, I will say I really like I'm really interested in astrology, but also I don't like astrology is not it for me.
Oh,
It's
wow.
helping people that's it for me. Like yeah, for
Wow.
me, like I will rarely, if ever, bring up astrology socially. For me, it's all about getting to it, you know?
Yeah.
And astrology is a great way to get to it. But
Yeah. So
it's
it's
just
more of
one
a
way to get to
tool
it.
for you.
It's a tool. For me, it's a tool. It's not a belief
Wow.
system. It's not a spiritual organization. It's
Mhm.
a tool. And it's a tool that can be used in so many different ways, very
Mhm.
validly.
Mhm.
Um, but my favorite ways to use it empower us to have more agency, more self awareness, to be better global citizens, to be, better community members, as well as to like heal ancestral trauma and like do all the things,
Mhm.
right? Like,
Mhm.
astrology can be used in all these ways. And so again, like, I just want to get into it. That's my
Yeah.
primary ambition is like get into it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's very clear. It actually one of my next questions I had, I said, some of the lovely traits I noted about you in the beginning, your empathetic, non-judgmental nature, while being a triple cap. And I said, as a practitioner, how are you able to hold space for that way for people, even when they're doing some fucked up things that you don't necessarily
Yeah.
agree with? Do you have a lot of outer planetary influence that speak to this? Are you Neptunian? And I was going to ask
Mhm.
if you're Uranian, but I said I would bet money
Yeah, yeah, you know
that
I am.
you're
You know I am.
hell yeah. If you're not,
So
I just
I have
throw
yeah,
everything
absolutely.
away.
So I have sun, moon, and rising are all Capricorn, but my sun and moon and my Mars are all in the 12th. And
Gotcha.
so I really am I am empathetic, but
Mhm.
I think more than that, I have my moon in Capricorn. It's opposite Saturn. It's square to Pluto.
Wow.
I could be an incredibly judgmental person. I could be severe and punishing and constantly clocking things. I know this because I have been. I have been um very just fucking constantly clocking for what you did wrong, what you really meant when you did that,
Right. Right.
where power lies, where consequences are, and why is this person getting X when they did Y? You know,
Right.
I've done that, and
Mhm.
not only was it not effective, it was a deflection from emotional accountability and
Wow.
personal accountability. And so, at different points of my life, I decided to change, and I
Ooh.
did. And
Wow.
you know, change is a practice. It's not a choice. It's a practice. But I am also quite Uranian. I have Uranus at the top of my chart, and I have Mercury and Venus in Aquarius intercept my first. So I
I knew
feel
it.
yeah, I feel like I look really boring and normie all the time, and my partner's like my partner does that. My partner's like, "No, fool, no." But I'm just
Yeah.
like, "Why do I look so boring?" It's constantly I feel so Capricorn that I'm not aware of my intercepted first house planets, which is
Oh,
classic interception, right?
hilarious.
Part of why I am as empathetic and patient as I am and as willing to meet people where they're at, whether where they're at is completely like what I would deem from where I'm at wrong,
Mhm.
is because I have changed.
Wow.
And I believe that anyone can change. And I don't believe that it's easy. And I don't believe it's instantaneous. And I don't believe everyone will. But I want to meet people with good faith where they're at. And I think that this thing about meeting people in good faith where they're at, a lot of times people experience as magic. They experience it as a healing because of how
Yeah.
infrequently we meet people in good faith where they're at.
Wow. That just blew
Acceptance
my
is
mind.
unfortunately yeah, and it's really like as an astrologer or a therapist or a friend or whatever it is, if whenever and as much as we can practice being in good faith present and just being mindful, okay, this is who I am and this is where I'm at and that's who they are and that's where they're at. It's
Right.
this like not merging thing. That
Right.
it's this like well boundaried acceptance.
Right.
Empathy, empathy and sympathy and pity, we use them synonymously, but they're so radically different from each other.
Right.
Pity is so Plutonian and empathy is Neptunian,
Yeah.
right?
Well, pity
Right?
is like I'm up here, you're down
Yeah.
there, right?
Yeah.
And empathy is like, I just do the Neptunian move.
You just like you open it up. And I think a lot of times when people are like, okay, I'm gonna give a reading to somebody and they're cheating on their partner, and I
Right, I
know
hear
that's
this all the
bad.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I know that's bad. It's bad to cheat, so this person's doing something bad. To
Mhm.
me, that immediately means the reading is not going to help the person at the level that they can be helped because
Mm.
cheating is not bad. Cheating is something that I don't do, and I don't do it for my moral and ethical reasons. But I've looked at enough birth charts to understand there is a lot of different reasons for cheating. And
Mhm. It's a symptom.
it's a symptom. And also, listen,
And
am I gonna fuck
Jupiterian.
with somebody who's gonna exactly. Am I gonna fuck with somebody who's gonna cheat on me? Absolutely not. Am I I've let my partner know he cheats, murder.
Yeah.
Period. Like that's
Yeah.
it. But when you give somebody a reading and they tell you this is what I'm doing, if you can meet them with curiosity and be like, "Okay, this is what you're doing. This is what
Mhm.
you're doing. This is where you are. Okay. What what's that about? What do you believe about it? Like do you think it's right? Do you think it's wrong? Do you not think about it? Do you feel
Right.
entitled? Do you not?" If we go in with authentic curiosity, which
Mhm.
requires empathy,
Mhm.
then we can actually hold space for the person to come to their own truth. And I'll never forget, I did a reading with somebody who's like big tech guy. Again, I'm from San Francisco. Um, and he had so much money and so much cultural power. His company is very big.
Mhm.
And he mentioned something about homeless people because San Francisco has a huge homeless population.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
asked if he cared about them. And he said, "No, not at all."
Wow.
That was my reaction. It's just like it hurt me in my soul. And I had to take a beat and be like, okay, I am right now unable to meet this person where he is because
Right.
I am full of judgments. And
Mm.
so I actually had to own that. And what I did in that situation was I asked more questions. And I
Mm.
hated all of the answers equally. But the point, but the point is like meeting someone where they're at is not a betrayal of my ethics
Right.
because right? And it's not and my take is in an individual consultation, it's not my role to give them my worldview or
Right.
my take on what's correct. My role is
Yeah.
to meet them where they're at and to
Mhm.
help them to evolve from that point.
Mhm.
And honestly, like that is part of why I started a podcast so I could have more of my opinion out there because after, 20 something years I was like a little burnt out of
Yes.
not saying my opinion, but I am committed to it. Like I am committed to it
Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
practice ongoing. Um and I think a lot of times practitioners feel, especially in today's world, like if you don't tell someone they're wrong, then you somehow condoned their behavior.
Mhm.
But I actually don't think that's the case in context of a consulting session.
Mm.
In context of a consulting session, it's my job as the consultant to be curious and to meet them where they're at, because that's you can only help somebody from where they're at. If you say to somebody, "You have to meet me here in order for
Yeah.
you to get help," you're not
The
gonna help them.
wall is gonna be up, and you do that so beautifully. You can tell that, like, your ego is completely gone. Like, it's
I try to
dissolved.
keep it as out as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to hear that you changed, is actually, I love that. Awesome. Because 'cause I'm a very Plutonian person too, and Saturnian.
Yeah.
So to hear that someone else who has those strong planets along with outer planets, has the capacity to change is pretty awesome.
Yeah. Change
Was there
is
any
always
particular
possible.
practice that you did, or
So, there was this point when I was a kid. I was, like, in my teens, like, not a tween, but, like, in my teens, and I had just been compulsive liar. Like, I just lied about things. It was
Mhm,
like a trauma response. I lied. And
mhm,
I met a new friend,
mhm.
and I remember thinking, "This person doesn't know me. I can choose to be a really honest person." And from that day, I became an honest person. Like a really hon
Wow.
I just sometimes you just have to I am of the mind, and not everyone can do this, and that's not always possible, and, I was young, so there's also that. But
Mhm,
there are moments where you're like, "Oh, I could actually just be more tolerant." And then a lot
mhm.
of times out of habit, we don't jump in. We don't say,
Right,
you know what I mean? Let's try that. But
right.
I do wanna say that shit works sometimes.
It
Sometimes
does.
it does work,
Yeah,
especially for those of us who are Saturnian or Plutonian, because there's this, like, when there's like a belief behind it, there is willpower, like iron
exactly.
willpower. So that is
Mhm.
one thing. Another thing is I recognize, gosh, I'm trying to think of how old I was. This is somewhere around the Saturn return period. I realized, oh, wow, I rarely smile. Like, I don't smile
Mm,
a lot. And again,
mm.
I mean, you don't get to do the work I do and have the chart I have and have like an easy go of it, right?
Right.
So I was just like constantly just I was not a smiling person. I realized it. I don't remember what it was, but something like kind of small happened and I realized it and I was like, I actually can choose to try to experience more joy. And I would always tell
Mm.
people like I don't want to be happy. Happy is not a goal of mine. And I meant
Right,
it. Um
right.
and I
Cap.
just made a decision. Yeah, very Capricorn. And I made a decision in my life. I was going to smile. And so I started to smile at everyone I made eye contact with on the street. That was how I did it. And
Oh, I love
it
that.
was like the building of a muscle. It was like exercise. I practiced smiling. I experienced smiling. I experienced people smiling back. I experienced people not smiling back. I experienced having to have more boundaries around, my safety while also trying to be open. Like it opened all of these things. And I smile all the time now. Like many years later, but I smile
Yeah, you
all
radiate
the
joy.
time. I do a lot of smiling and laughing, and I didn't,
Wow.
I didn't, up until around 30. Like, I don't remember if I was in my late 20s or my early 30s when this happened, but I do I'm sharing these 2 smaller things. There's much bigger things that took, like, all kinds of therapy and time and practice, um, but I think sometimes we try to make it really complicated, like, "How can I become happier?"
Right.
I didn't make it complicated. I
You made a
just was like,
choice.
"I'm gonna practice smiling." Yeah,
Mhm.
and see how it affects me, and it it was a very big change for me, like a
Wow.
very big change, and I do think that sometimes when making a change, it's, like, useful to
Mhm.
do something small and material as a symbol, or a practice that it like
Like a
the personal
ritual.
yeah, and the
Mhm.
personal evolution can cascade from it. So, smiling
Ooh.
more had all kinds of like, now that I've learned more about how the brain works and how social interactions work, it had
Yeah.
all kinds of impacts on me that I wasn't thinking about or I
Oh,
was thinking about, but I didn't know how to achieve.
right.
And so I just think sometimes, you know, okay, here's one other one, and this will be the last one I share. But
Yeah, share as many as you want.
this is also like this one is pretty Neptunian, I think.
Mhm.
I lived in San Francisco and I lived on this block with the best cafe
Mm.
in town. It was like French cafe, so delicious. There
Mm.
was constantly a line outside. I couldn't afford anything in the fucking cafe. I couldn't afford the croissant. I couldn't afford the coffee. And I would walk by this line and I would be like, these motherfuckers, I fucking, can I cuss? I'm sorry.
Of course.
Okay.
That's the way.
Okay. I was like, these motherfuckers standing online, and I'm like going to the shittier cafe around the corner. I wanted and I hated the people until I don't remember how long this went on for, until I finally, like, something shifted. And I was like, I actually don't hate these people.
Right. It's a
I
defense
actually want
mechanism.
to be able to afford the delicious food.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I was like, "Oh, so I'm having this, like, anger and defensive and blaming response to
Right.
me bearing witness to, like, they have something that I want." And so
Mm.
I was taught this okay, I was taught this mantra,
Uh-huh.
this money manifestation mantra,
Ooh.
by this writer, Michelle T, who I used to, like, be partners with, we were writing partners with, um, and it was, "Money has a crush on me. Money wants
Mm.
to be near me. I like
Ooh.
money. Money likes me." That was it. That was the whole fucking
Ooh.
mantra. It was
Alright.
easy. It was
Mhm.
fun. It was light. I wrote it down. I bought a gold checkbook because this is back in the day and people use checks. I bought a gold wallet,
Mm.
and then on a red piece of paper, I wrote that cute little mantra.
Right.
And every time I would find myself getting angry at people who may or may not have been good people doing good things, but whenever I caught myself being angry at people who had financial abundance and that they were, like, getting something that I wanted, I would just catch myself and I'd be like, "Okay, there it is again," and I'd say the little mantra. And that year my clients started to flow more, I started to make more money, all that kind of thing happened,
Wow.
and it's very Neptunian, working with color,
Yeah.
working with mantras, and
Yes.
also tapping into the flow of abundance
Mm.
instead of the class issues or or the anger or the, like,
Mhm.
social issues, all of which are perfectly valid and
Right.
all of which are perfectly real. We don't wanna,
Mhm.
like, I'm not, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not
You're
here to
right.
be like,
I am
"Yeah,
who I
class
am.
is an illusion." No, no,
Right.
no, no. But it was a kind of, it was a shift in what I focused on. And
Mm.
that shift, eventually what I would do is whenever I would, pay somebody for something, so I, like, go to Trader Joe's. Do you have Trader Joe's on
Mhm.
the East Coast?
Yeah.
Okay. I go to Trader Joe's and I, like, buy my fucking groceries, and the person who was receiving the money was obviously not receiving the money. They were doing so on behalf of Joe. But I, I would say a little, like, thing, like, it was kinda like ringing a bell where I would be like, "May this money bless you." Like, "May you have abundance from receiving this money." Even though
Wow.
it wasn't about, it was just I would do, like, a little mantra in my head every time I had an exchange, and it took the, ugh, out of spending money. Like, it took the, like,
Mm.
in the
Mhm.
moment, and
That
I tr
tightness.
that
Mhm.
tightness, and
That's a
also
block.
yeah, exactly, and I just focused on the flow part, and I
Mm.
knew I was giving my money to a corporation, and the person taking my money wasn't getting it, but I focused on the energetic part where me and this person were having an exchange, and there was a flow to that exchange, and for me, that work done alongside other things really works. And I say alongside other things is because, you can't, like, manifest your way out of fucking capitalism. You
Right.
can't, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to suggest that, I wanna be clear. It's
Right.
alongside. And for
Right.
me, that really, those are ways that I changed, and they are also ways that I return to at times.
Thank
Yeah.
you for sharing that. I think that's such a helpful thing. And again, to know that someone with such strong planetary influence of quote unquote malefics is able to change and tap in.
Yeah.
And what better thing to talk about when we have a Neptune
Right?
subject?
And I
Yeah.
honestly, I'll just say one more quick thing, which is
Hmm.
the more fucked up your chart is, the more capable you are to change. I
Ooh.
really believe that. I genuinely believe that, and it's because you're suffering anyways.
Right.
You're suffering anyways. So if you're
Right.
gonna suffer anyways, like, listen, you break a bone.
Mhm.
If you go to the doctor, they break it again, right?
Right.
To reset it. That's
Mm.
the kind of pain we want. We want the pain of healing, not the pain of breaking. So when
Right.
those of us who have fucked up charts and the malefics are
Right.
like wearing party hats, we are the ones who are already in pain. So we
Right.
might as well change. And I
Yeah.
really have seen that come to pass in my practice when people have really like easy, chill, like lots of sex sales and
Trines, yeah.
trines, a lot of times they
Why
don't
would
do the
they?
work. There's no motivation.
Right, but if
Yeah.
it's like, "Ouch, ouch,
Yeah.
ouch, ouch," like,
Right.
"Alright, let me
Motivate.
get the fuck out of here and change
Exactly.
this." Yeah, no, that
Exactly.
makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I have 2 more questions for you, and then we'll get into Neptune.
Great.
I just wanna know, were you born this way? Like, how did you become such a badass? You're so queer and here, you're so liberation oriented, you're just I just think you're such a cool fucking person, and, like,
That's
so
nice.
were you born this way? Was your family this way? Like, I don't know.
It's very nice of you to say.
Yeah,
No, absolutely not.
okay.
Yeah, I mean,
I
I
did
came
read that were you a precocious child? You were kind of you always had that
I
confidence?
I mean, I I have Mercury in the 1st house.
Oh,
So,
okay.
I've always been verbal.
Mhm.
I'm very verbal. I've always
Yeah.
been very verbal. But that's a really interesting question because, I didn't know I was psychic until I was 30.
Wow.
When I figured out that I was gay, I came out immediately. So
Lucky
maybe
you.
in
Or
that
not
way,
lucky,
yeah.
but yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
awesome. You didn't struggle.
I
Not
wasn't
struggle, but
closeted. I did struggle, but I wasn't closeted exactly.
yeah.
I grew up, in the '80s around a bunch of gay people. My mom had gay friends.
Okay.
So I was, um, never confused that I could be gay. I just
Gotcha.
was a late bloomer, and so when I figured it out, I was like, "Guess what? I'm gay." And my mother was like, "Duh, this is so boring." Like, she was just like, "Obviously." Yeah.
She's like, "I was
Um
waiting for you."
I was, like, literally, like, I had a little shaved head and I was wearing men's slacks and, like, white tank tops and I was like, "Guess what? I'm gay." And she was like, "Really? Say more obvious things to me." So,
She's like, "And
yeah,
water is wet."
exactly. But I definitely listen, this is the real truth of the matter is that, um, I understood very clearly that, the world was not made for me. That there was
Right.
nothing I could do to fit into the world. Nothing, you know?
Right.
My family were refugees and had
That's right.
dealt with all kinds of terrible things and I have this like thing, my eye, I have like something called ptosis of the eye. And so I had this like facial deformity and facial difference. And I was never going to be somebody who fit in a particular way just because of that. I knew as a woman, I would never have the kind of power that I saw men having. And all of these things, by the time I was 16, I was like, okay, so I'm never going to fit in. There's not a place for me in this world that is the place I'm told I'm supposed to want. And so I was just like, okay, so I just have to be myself. I just have to try to be myself. And um, I really just went about trying to figure out who that was. And it th that was at 16 that I kinda had that epiphany, and then, um, by the time I was 17 and a half, I took my first astrology class.
Wow.
So, yeah, so it just kind of happened that way. I look back at my life and I think, "Oh, there's so many like, things where I'm like, "Well, this is kind of magical," but at the time, it was
Yeah.
just, like, me struggling to live, like, I found the last year of my high school, I went to, like, a public high school, but it was, like, very conservative, and I hated the school, I hated being there, and on the first day of my last year of high school, found an alternative high school and
Wow.
got myself into it, and bada
Wow.
bing. So I think for me, believing and understanding that I was never gonna fit into this world, it freed me of the desire to fit into this world. And I know people think, oh, sun, moon, rising in Capricorn, plus I've got Saturn opposite my sun and moon. Like I'm very Saturnian and very Capricorny, and
But that
people
12th
think
house, that
convention.
acceptance is coming in again. There
That's
you
it.
go.
It is. It is. And also
Yeah.
a willingness to not belong, and I have very
Mm.
anti-capitalist values, and I always have, and I very feminist, and
Mhm.
very,
Uranian too. You think that
gay.
helps?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it all helps. It all
Yeah.
helps. And also, at the end of the day, when you're pushed into a corner, I feel like you always have a choice about how you're gonna relate to the corner. And I was just like, "I'm gonna explore the fucking corner." I believe it I'm not the only person in this corner. Like, I was just like, "I'm gonna double down on being pushed into a corner," and it worked for me.
Mm.
Um, and it worked for me for a lot of reasons, some of
That's
which I didn't
beautiful.
want anything. Like, I didn't want anything from the world. Again,
Wow.
very 12th housey,
Yeah.
right?
I'm like, geez.
Very 12th housey. Yeah, I never
Yeah.
had ambitions to, like I didn't wanna go to college, I didn't wanna own a car, I didn't wanna own a house, I didn't have any worldly ambitions.
Mm.
Um, and I'm 50 now, and I have some, I've evolved, I've changed, but I definitely didn't, in my teens, 20s, or 30s. Yeah,
Wow. That is
yeah.
so incredible.
Well,
So freaking 12th house. I've heard about the 12th house. What did someone say that people with a sun in the 12th house have no control over the direction of their own lives? Is that true? Would you
oh,
say?
that's interesting. I wouldn't.
Okay. It's like
This
an
is my
old
big beef.
school person that
Yes. I was
said
gonna
that.
say that was a
Yeah, it's like
Hellenistic
a very
astrologer.
older
Yeah.
astrologer. Yeah.
Mhm. It would have to be, because here's the thing, and this is the fucking mountain I will die on, okay? Astrology is ancient. God bless.
Yeah.
Okay, but the astrologers who cling to ancient ideas as though we don't have psych meds, as though
Right.
like that idea was at one time true, and that time was when people couldn't be like, my mother was a mother and my father was worked with steel, but
Right.
I'm going to be a teacher. Like, you couldn't do that until recent human history.
Right.
Time has changed, society has changed, the ability for people to be weird and to make a life around their weirdness is here, and it wasn't there. And so the astrology has to adapt, and I think the idea that 12th house people have like secret enemies and they're going to be lost
Yeah.
in the sauce, and that like you it's like the house of undoing. I
Yeah.
reject all of that. I
Yeah.
reject all of that.
I love that.
Maybe before we had psych meds, maybe before we had therapy, maybe before we had TED Talks, but we have that shit now. Like, you and I can sit across the continent from each other and have a conversation about choosing to change.
Mm.
That's new.
Yeah.
That's like brand new, right?
Right.
Like that wasn't 10 years ago. I mean, Skype,
Right.
we could have Skyped, but
Yeah.
like the world has evolved, and
Right.
the astrology must how we
Evolve with it.
understand the astrology must evolve with it. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I have directed my life very
Clearly.
yes, very much so. And does it help that I have very earthy planets? My sun and moon are very earthy. My Mars is
Mhm.
in fire, but um it does help. Like, if I had fire or water in my 12th house, it would be different than having earth in my 12th house. That said, we live in a world in which we can ask for help. And there's endless ways of getting help now. And that wasn't true even in the 1950s. Like, it
Right.
wasn't as much of a global world even in the 1950s. So
Right.
I just reject that as a reality. I believe that that was once true, and I don't believe
Okay.
that that is true. And I want, like, anyone listening who has a like stacked 12th house or really challenging Neptune transits to know that you have agency, and within your agency, we all need to make decisions about what kind of support do I need,
Right.
and I think that that's like, I mean, it used to be if you needed a cavity, it would mean you would die because
Right.
we didn't have dental work, but we
Right.
don't use astrology to say that anymore, and we shouldn't.
Right.
And the same thing is true with mental health stuff, I believe.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Strong
my
feelings,
last
obviously.
question for you before we dive into our Neptune talk.
Mhm.
Um, so you've stopped giving readings for some
Mhm.
time. Can you touch on that a bit? Do you ever see
Yeah.
yourself returning to readings? Do you do
Yeah.
them for any clients? And do you accept bribes? Asking for a friend.
That's really funny. So, okay. So, do I accept bribes? Not usually. Um,
We'll talk after the
yeah,
show.
we'll talk after the show, exactly. Do I okay, the other part is, do I do readings? Not really. Every once in a while, I'll have, like, an old client that's been with me for, a long time, or, you know, somebody reaches out and due to particulars, I'll squeeze them in, but usually but, like, I mean, no, I don't really do readings
Not your
anymore.
thing.
And it's not because I don't love doing readings. It's because the world has changed and I have changed.
Yeah.
And, from 1999 until, um, the first month of 2020, I did readings for my living. Was it full-time in 99? Yeah, it was full-time that was my full-time living from 99 till 2020.
Mm,
Um, and I love doing readings. I do love doing readings. The thing that's changed is the world. And so I had this limitless capacity to meet people where they were at in the ways we've been talking about.
mhm,
In a post-COVID world, um, there's like two things at play. One is I have such a strong disability justice lens and
mhm,
community care lens
mhm.
that I was able to hold space for people being different and in different ways, um, differently than I am now, I'll
Mm,
just say. And it's a combination of the world has changed me and not doing readings for 5 years has changed me. I am very used to being able to be an opinionated asshole as much as I love to be.
yeah.
And before my podcast, which I started in 2018, nobody knew my opinions. Now
Mm,
people have a parasocial relationship with me, which changes the readings in general. So there's that, and I don't have the capacity to consult with people full time with their cognitive dissonance
mhm.
around, amongst other things, COVID. But
Right.
COVID is a big player for me,
Mm,
and it always has been a big player for me because I am of the mind that when liberals and progressives stopped masking and started acting like, just disabled people. It's just old people. When that cultural shift happened, and none of us could deny that it happened,
yeah.
I knew that we would end up with Trump again. I
Mm,
knew that we would end up with the all of the worst possible presentations of the Pluto return of the United States. I knew that the US would implode in the way that it is doing. And this is because when we throw away the most vulnerable amongst us, you're next. I'm next.
right.
Period.
Yeah.
Period.
No
Just
more
period.
tribal, and
Mhm.
you're on
Mhm.
to what they're on to,
Yeah.
essentially, like
I
a
mean, the
degree to a
United S
degree.
yeah, the United States is a eugenicist project, right? It's like our founding fathers were eugenicists, um, and that is deeply connected to racism and
Mm,
misogyny and ableism and all the things, and this is again where I wanna just be really clear, like, we can be good astrologers, we could have a good politic and, good information, learn things, but if we don't merge the 2, then ultimately we're not gonna use the tool of astrology the most effectively. So, when I saw this happening, I just knew that I couldn't meet with person after person being like, "I don't know what's going on with my health. I don't know
mm,
why I feel so different. I don't know why my body's so different. I don't know why, all of my friendships have changed in these ways." It's like
mm.
having to, like, coach people through confronting such a devastating set of realities that we're living through.
Sure.
It's really it has become something that I am not willing to do at this time, which is why I'm
Yeah.
not seeing clients. That's actually the only reason why I'm not seeing clients.
I understand
Um,
that,
yeah,
actually. That sounds
yeah,
like self-preservation, honestly, in a
it
sense.
is, and it's again, it's like I think that as astrologers, this is important. I also think, like, again, as a person who's now 50, we have to continue to change. We
Yeah.
have to, like, if when you're given new information, it changes the old thing. And so
Mhm.
maybe you double down on the old thing, maybe you evolve. Either way, it's change, right?
Mm.
And I think the work that I was doing has been changed by the world, and it has been changed by the other kinds of work I have been doing.
Mm.
So
That
yeah,
makes sense.
and I've been asked to do more, like, structured teaching, um,
Mhm.
which I keep on, like, dancing around doing, so I might still do
Yeah.
it. Yeah, yeah,
I could see how you would be excellent at it because you're just an excellent teacher, but I could also see how
thank
that
you.
might bore you.
I taught a class, and let me tell you what, not everyone did the homework. You
Oh,
wanna
was
have
this
a
the one
trip to
where you met your
Capricorn.
partner?
Yeah, okay, I already knew him, he was in my class, he didn't do the
Okay.
homework,
I know he got thrown out, right?
I cut him the fuck out. I was like, "You are not allowed back in this room until you do the homework." He never did the homework, it was forever.
I love
Ice.
that story. And I also love the story how I always tell people how you do not look at your partner's chart, which
Yes.
again, you're like a freaking unicorn. I don't know how the hell I'm looking before I even meet you. It's probably because I'm super Neptunian. And then I just stay in the fantasy of the chart and not
Yep,
know the person. And that is
and then
why
not know the
that's
person.
why you say don't do it.
That's exactly right.
Oh,
I used to do it. It's not, again, and it's like, I think that this is
another
an important
choice
thing for
you
me to say.
made.
One of many, one of many. The
Wow.
being informed by mistakes is the greatest way to fuck with Saturn, you know? You learn from your mistakes. If you think I didn't, like, be like, "Oh, wait, it was your birthday," for years, of course I did, like everybody else, and some of that is how you learn astrology, but I will say it's always, whenever we use astrology to get to know other people that
Mhm.
are not our clients, but like people you're dating, people you're being friends with, you're
Yeah.
not actually getting to know them. You are now investing in a narrative that is a projection and it cannot be true. Even, like, I think I'm a really good astrologer and I
Mhm.
know that I cannot be right. I'm a really good
Mm.
psychic. I know that I cannot be right because
Mm.
here's the rule: when you are the subject, you
Mhm.
cannot be objective. And
Mm.
if you have talked to someone
Mhm.
and there was, like, people giving vibes, then you are now a subject of their birth chart.
Mm.
So here's
Whoa.
yeah. So just look
Okay.
at your own fucking
That
chart.
makes sense.
Yeah, look at your own
Oh.
chart. Every time you wanna look at someone else's chart, look at your own damn chart. That is my
Whew.
rule,
Mm.
because your chart will tell you, "Oh, shit, I just went through a Moon Jupiter, transit right around when I met this person.
Mm.
Okay, this is a growth moment for me. Is it a
Right.
growth that includes them? Is it a growth that's all mine? Do I
Mm.
just have, like, a girl still got it vibe,
Right.
or is it like, 'Ooh, this is gonna be something that grows?'" You
Right.
know, if by contrast you meet somebody and you've got vibes with them and you're just like, "Okay, I don't see anything active in my chart today. What's going
Yeah.
on in the bigger picture?" Then you can start to be like, "Well, wait a minute, what do I actually feel about this person? Why do
Mm.
I care about this person?" Instead of, when you look at them, again, you get all kinds of fucked up. You get all kinds of fucked
Yeah.
up. I know not everyone agrees with me. I
Oh,
also don't look at famous people's charts as a way to learn astrology
wow.
or teach astrology, and I've
Wow.
always been this way. Yeah.
Wow.
Mhm.
You're so on your own vibe, man. I love it though. I love it.
Thank you
I
very
love
much.
that
Exciting.
willpower too, though. Like,
I
whew.
I do have a lot of willpower, but if you've
Yeah.
got strong Saturn or Pluto, you do have a lot of willpower.
Yeah.
That's an inevitability. The question is, how do we use that willpower?
That's right.
Is it the power of our survival mechanisms, or is it the power of our intentions? This is why
Ooh.
every damn day I'm always talking about your intentions and your motives and your intentions and your motives and alignment, because when we embody our survival mechanisms and we are aligned with our survival mechanisms, here's what you're promised: survival.
Mm.
That's it. You're not
Preach.
promised happiness. You're not promised being your best self. You're just promised just being in your survival mechanisms. Survival. That's not what
Don't
we
I know
want.
that? Thank you so much for giving such intel. I've always been just really curious about you, and I was like, God, I wonder if she's
Oh, that's
gonna.
sweet.
Yeah, I was like, I wonder if she's like gonna answer any of these. Like, it would have been fine if you didn't, but I'm so glad to have insight just to your life as a person. I just think you're so
Oh,
interesting.
thank
So
you.
Thank you for
Oh,
answering
that's
those
very sweet.
questions.
I
Yeah.
don't want to blow your minds, but I want to assure you I'm incredibly boring. I'm very
Right.
boring.
Uh-huh.
No,
Uh-huh.
really, I am very boring. I am very boring. So it's again, this is a fun, yeah. I
To
mean, I am a
yourself.
triple Capricorn.
To yourself.
Yes. Yeah, it's true. It's
Oh,
true. But
yeah.
also, I'm boring. Just. I mean, I like hot pink, but I'm boring. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for that. Let's get into our planet for the day, the lovely outer planet Neptune. Okay,
Love it.
that's what we're going to talk about. Typically what I do is I kind of just start off with some keywords of the planets. And again, like some of those keywords that you have for Neptune and the way that you talk about it, I just can't wait to dive in because I'm sure many of you, if you haven't heard Jessica, when you hear how she explains about Neptune and some of the keywords, you're just really going to feel seen and understood and
Hmm.
heard. So let's get to it. So some of the words that I have dissolves, porous, it sensitizes, boundlessness, merging, surrender, the ethereal, creative, longing, escapism, spiritualizes, adds soulfulness, yearning. This is a huge one from you, disembodiment.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Holy
Yeah.
cannoli.
Yeah.
I when you started talking about, well, first I want to get some keywords from you if anything pops up, and then we're going to go to a quote from you relating to embodiment and then just get into
Okay. Okay. Oh, okay. Sorry. I'm like a quote from me. This is so
it.
exciting. I talk so much. I don't know what I could have possibly said. Okay. Okay. So I like all of those. I would say anxiety
Hmm.
can be paranoia, can be projection.
Mm.
We have disassociation and dissociation. Also empathy,
Hmm.
humanitarianism.
Hmm.
Um, it's the high arts, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
It's Neptune governs opiates, like
Mm.
opioids, opiates, those kinds of drugs. It's like
Yeah.
puff, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Fog.
and yeah,
Fog is a big one, right?
fog, and
Yeah.
all that, like illusion, disillusionment. It is spirituality, but it's also really about experiencing the world without the sharp edges. So it's
Ooh.
Uranus and Neptune in very different ways both govern non-binariness, like living
Mm.
outside of binary.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That
It's
is so
also
deep.
asexual. It's pretty ace.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another one I have is rose-colored glasses. That's one of the big ones.
Yes. Very big one.
Um,
Yes.
and actually, I thought this was a really good one. Resignation. Um,
Yeah.
kind of like resignation and resignation from the ego or what we identify as. I think that's a big one because I
Yeah.
had a lot of mutable planets. So when Neptune went into Pisces and hit my sun, Mercury, and everything else,
Ugh.
I'm literally just getting out of bed like 10 years later.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I just
That's
wanted to
real.
be in bed.
Yeah. Neptune robs us of our spoons. You know,
Mm,
the thing about being a human is we are spiritual beings having a material experience. And Neptune is like, material experience? Why?
right, right,
Leave. Go. Go back to where you came from, the
right.
stars. Like, you know what I mean? That Neptune is hard to reconcile a lot of times with our
Yes,
material needs,
yes.
or with material expectations. And,
Hmm.
a really Neptunian person's like, what is a clock? Clock is a
Right.
suggestion. What is time? Time,
Right,
time is a fantasy. Like,
right.
yeah, I have a friend who has like a Mars Neptune aspect in his chart, and he calls
Wow.
himself a magical time person. He's like, I always think 10 minutes means 5 hours. Like, he really believes he can squeeze anything into 10 minutes. And I'm like, that's fucking Neptune right there. That is
Yes,
Neptune right there.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I always say that Neptunian people, what I say is we like to live life in Technicolor. We always want
Wow.
it to be like a movie by
Yeah.
any means necessary.
By any means necessary. It's real.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, the quote that I have from actually a recent podcast of yours, and I think it's a great starting point. The lesson is to figure out how to be here and how to take care of yourself here, to stay associated, to stay checked in. And this basically is referring to being embodied. So, can you please elaborate on this because I think
Yeah.
that it captures the essence of Neptune, the pitfalls, and just the difficulties personally that I have a lot of difficulty with this planet.
Mhm.
And I know a lot of us do, because I'm just trying to figure out, like, what are the healthy ways of doing Neptune? Can you do Neptune without being completely submerged, without losing
Mhm.
yourself, without drowning in it? Like, is
Yeah,
that Neptune?
yeah. So this is where my relationship to Neptune and kind of more by extension the 12th house and Pisces stuff,
Mhm.
um, is where my humanistic astrology really starts to show itself, right?
Mm,
And so I wanna say that because using astrology as a humanistic astrologer means bending the astrology to the human experience,
mm,
lending it to the human need. And so Neptune always threw me off, right? When I was first studying astrology, because I was like, all these spiritual words. And I would consult with people, and they would not be spiritual people. They would just be people. And
mhm,
they would be like, I don't really resonate with, like, I'm not praying all the time. I'm not a nun. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're like fucking and playing and doing drugs and, like, wanting to, like,
mhm.
live in the world. So
Yeah.
all these key words I was using didn't resonate. And this is where I came to understand Neptune, functionally speaking, teaches whenever we see a strong Neptune in the birth chart, we know that person has issues with boundaries.
Mhm,
And so the issue of Neptune is always the issue of boundaries. And so
mm,
if you are somebody who has access to limitlessness, to boundlessness, to the
mhm,
capacity to experience empathy for all human suffering, how do you not collapse under the weight? How do you not lose yourself in the journey of exploration?
mm,
The answer is actually boundaries. And so there was the first queer astrology conference happened a number of years ago. And
mhm,
it was at this time I was giving a talk with another astrologer, and it was at this time that I realized not everybody was using astrology in this particular way that I do, because my gay ass was focused on safer sex. I was like,
Well,
"Who
you do.
is."
You always talk about that same
I'm
sex and the Neptune.
always talking about it. And in my
Mhm,
private practice, I talk about it way more than I do on the podcast.
mhm,
Trust.
mm.
So the thing about Neptune is if I see Neptune in the fifth house, if I see Neptune in hard aspect, or sometimes in any aspect to Venus or Mars
Mhm,
or the moon, I
mm,
know that person has issues with safer sex. And what are issues?
mm.
Neptune's like, I don't need a boundary between me and you.
Right,
It's meant to be. Therefore, I don't have to take material precautions because we're having a moment. And that
right,
moment exists outside of consequence.
right.
That moment is simply about us.
And the oneness. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And so the lesson is to choose yourself. It's to be
Ooh.
able to, like, in the context of this, say, I can have endless moments with this person, and they're not more important than the moments I have in my body and with myself. And so what I do is I have safer sex, whatever that means in the given situation, um, because I want that person to know that I take care of myself and I want them to take care of me. So I ask
Mm,
them to use a condom or whatever.
mhm,
Um, it's also a way of preserving and investing in your own wellness. Now, that's one example, right?
right.
But having a Neptunian nature means that you don't want to have to say it. You don't want to have to say, I need X. You want them
Right.
to magically know it.
It's so crass and awkward.
Yeah. To like invoke your preferences means you are robbing that person of their opportunity to be your magical prince or princess or whatever the fuck it is, right? It
Mm,
means right.
nail on
It
head.
yeah, yeah. It means that you are
You may burst the fantasy, your own fantasy's bubble.
there it is. That's
Damn!
it. That's it. That's it. That's it. And
Oh,
so
shit.
it's about recognizing when you have a really Neptunian nature, there are certain things that I will leave to chance and romance and the universe. And there are other things that I do to and for myself as a commitment to the love relationship I'm in with me.
Ooh,
The
beautiful.
problem with Neptune is it has us being devotional to others, outsized to ourselves. And that's the boundary problem.
Right,
That's the boundary problem, is
right.
learning, "Oh, shit, I get to be in a love relationship with myself. Therefore, okay, for instance, somebody has strong Neptune stuff in their chart. You can't snuggle. You can't be like, I'm dating this person, but we're going to move slow. We're not going to fuck. We're just going to snuggle. No. You would do better getting nasty in a bathroom somewhere, doing every sexual act you're capable of, and going home. Do you know what I'm saying?
That's exactly right. I always say forking leads to spooning. I mean, spooning leads to forking.
Yes. Yes. Spooning is where people with strong Neptune fall in love. You fall in love in those romantic moments in between things.
Yeah.
So you must not have those moments
Like,
when you are first getting to know someone, because you fall in love with the potential that those moments suggest, instead of the reality of who that person is and how they actually make you feel and whether or not you're actually compatible. So again, this is not about taking romance out of the equation.
Right. Because I'm like,
It's about having a
give it
romance
to
with
me
yourself.
then?
Yeah, it's about doing it with yourself.
That was part 1. Part 1 was fun. Stay tuned for part 2. Part 2 is new. Woohoo!